Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Paul, I'm with the Dicey Review, and today we're going to be learning how to play the 2 to 5 player game in the footsteps of Darwin. In the Footsteps of Darwin comes with all of the components that you see here, including 69 total tiles split between animal tiles and character tiles, 10 guide tokens, 15 compass tokens, 16 publication tokens, a score pad, a cloth bag, 28 theory tiles, 1 Darwin token, 1 HMS Beagle figure, a journey board, and 5 naturalist notebooks. To begin setup, place the journey board face up in the middle of the table, and place the Beagle token on its starting space here. Then each player will receive a naturalist's notebook, and the player who most recently traveled by ship would be the first player, or alternatively you could just decide this randomly. This player would be given the Darwin token. They'll be the first player in the game. Then, place the guide tokens, publication tokens, and compass tokens on their space in the main board. Make sure to shuffle all of the tiles very well, and then take 12 tiles from the box for each naturalist in play, and create a number of face-down piles near the play area. Then take 9 tiles from the box and place them face up on each of the 9 spaces in the middle of the journey board. Next, each player will be dealt out a theory tile that they'll place face up on the topmost theory space, which is going to be at the top right of their notebook. With the remaining theory tiles, you'll create 2 face-down draw piles on the dedicated spaces of the board here, draw 3 tiles from the stacks, and then fill in the spaces like shown here. Finally, each player will take a guide token and place it on the leftmost dedicated space of their player board. And once this has been done, the players are ready to play. When playing in the Footsteps of Darwin, players take on the role of junior naturalists that are attempting to help Charles Darwin finish his book by taking another journey on the HMS Beagle. During their trip, players will document information about particular animals that they might see, take inspiration from different characters, and generally try to earn additional victory points by writing publications, developing theories, carry out surveys, and enlist the help of guides along the way. Players will do this by selecting tiles from the middle area during their turn and then placing them on their naturalist's notebook. Gameplay will last until each player has placed exactly 12 tiles, whether they be animals or characters, on their notebook, and then players will score victory points in a number of different categories. Beginning with the naturalist that has the Darwin token, players will take turns in a clockwise order, and on their turn, they will either study an animal or take inspiration from a character, and then they'll move the Beagle token depending on which tile was selected. When players are selecting a tile, they can only select one of the tiles from the column and/or row where the Beagle token currently resides. So in our example, this player at the start of the game would be able to select one of these 3 tiles on their turn. We'll say, for instance, that this player selected this tile here. If the tile selected was an animal tile, there will be a specific space where that tile can go. Each animal tile will have a different region, Africa, America, Asia, or Oceania, a different class, mammal, arthropod, bird, or reptile, and a different bonus that the players will receive. These bonuses could be either immediate or in-game bonuses. Some animals will also have an emblematic animal icon. When placing an animal tile, it has to go in the space that matches the different region and the animal type, so in our example, this animal would be placed here. If the animal has any immediate bonuses, you would resolve them when placed. This is an end-of-game bonus, but we'll look at each one of the bonuses in detail later in the video. If the tile selected by the players was a character, it would be placed in one of the 3 spaces on the left side of their board that can hold a character. Players can only hold up to 3 characters, And each character would also provide a bonus, which we'll talk about in more detail later in the video. After a player has selected and placed a tile on their board, they will then resolve these two steps in order. First, the beagle will move a number of spaces equal to the distance of the tile that was chosen. So for instance, if the tile 1 space away from the beagle was selected, the beagle would move 1 space. If the tile that's 2 spaces away was selected, the beagle would move 2 spaces, and if the tile that's 3 spaces away was selected, the beagle would move 3 spaces. In our example, the beagle would move 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, and then a new tile from one of the stacks would be drawn to fill in the empty space. After a player has drawn and resolved a tile, and then moved the beagle token and filled in the empty space, their turn would be over and it would then be the next player's turn. Play would continue in this way until the last tile from the draw tile is placed onto the journey board. At that point the game would end, and once again this would happen once each player has placed exactly 12 tiles. Now that we've looked at a structure of a turn, let's look at each tile and their bonuses and how they'll benefit players. Tiles that have a Discover bonus, either 1, 2, or 3 listed in the bottom right here, will give you that many victory points at the end of the game if this tile is left uncovered. Tiles that show this survey marker here will allow a player to gain 1 of these compass tokens. A player can hold up to 5 of a compass token, and if they would gain a 6th, they would simply ignore that reward. They could still take the animal tile, however, even if they couldn't gain a 6th compass. If a player gains a tile that has this chart symbol in the bottom right here, this would be an end game bonus, and at the end of the game, each animal tile that has one of these chart symbols will be worth a number of victory points equal to the player's compass tokens. So for instance, this tile could be worth up to 5 victory points at the end of the game if the player has collected 5 compass tokens. If a player places a tile that has this symbol on the bottom right here, that means they would be able to hire a guide. They would be able to place a guide token in one of the available spaces on their player board that can hold guides. A player can only have up to 2 of those guide tokens, so once again, if you would study an animal that would give you a 3rd guide, you would simply ignore that bonus, although you could still place the animal tile. It's also important to note that if a player ever places an animal tile that has this symbol here, that's an emblematic tile, and if a player places that tile, they would take the Darwin token from whatever player currently has it. It's important to note that at the end of the game, this token is worth 2 points. If you place a tile and you already have the Darwin token, nothing would happen. Those are the bonuses and symbols on the different animal tiles, but it's also important to note that players can take a special action if they want to on their turn by discarding one of the guide tiles. If a player wants to, at the start of their turn, before selecting either an animal or a character tile, they could use one of their guide tokens by returning it to the main board, and they could take one of 2 special actions. They could either move the beagle 1 space backwards or forwards and then take their turn as usual, or they could discard the 3 face-up tiles that are in the beagle's column or row, placing them on the bottom of one of the stacks, and then replace those 3 tiles that were discarded before taking their turn as normal. A reminder of these actions are printed on each player board as well. There are also 2 other types of tiles that players could potentially gain during the game, either theory tiles or publication tiles. We'll first look at how a player would gain a theory tile. If a player ever collects a tile that has the exact same animal type and region as one that they already have, they would cover the type of tile that they had previously with the new tile. They would gain any immediate bonus that the new tile provides, so in this case gaining a compass token, and any benefit or reward of the covered tile would now be lost. It is important to note, however, that if you cover a tile that gives you an instant benefit, you don't have to return what you gained by placing that tile initially. After covering up a tile, you would then gain a theory tile. You could either gain one of the face-up theory tiles, or you could gain one of the top theory tiles from either of the face-down stacks. We'll say, for instance, that this player selected this one. They would replace whatever theory tile they drew if they drew one from the row. They would then place this theory tile in the next open available space on their player board where they can hold theory tiles. A player can only hold up to 6 theory tiles throughout the game, and these tiles will be checked to give you victory points at the end of the game. You can have more than one of the same type of theory tile if you want to on your board, and if you would ever gain a 7th theory tile, instead of gaining another tile, you would simply be able to replace one of your existing theory tiles if you want to, or you would simply return the new tile that you got if you don't want to keep that one to the bottom of any stack. And lastly, it's important to note that if you want to, you can cover the same animal multiple times to continue getting theory tiles throughout the game. The other type of tile that players could potentially gain would be a publication tile. If a player ever completes a row or column by filling in 4 animals of the different types, for instance, if the player placed this tile here, or if later they were to place a tile here, they would be able to take any one of the publication tiles that they want from this space and place it in the designated space in the top left of their player board for endgame scoring. If a player gains an additional publication tile, they would simply stack it on top of any that they have remaining if they complete new columns or rows later in the game. The game will last until the last tile of the draw pile has been placed in the main area, which would mean that each player has now placed 12 tiles on their player board, whether that be characters or animals. Players would first score points for all of the animals that show victory points. They would then score 5 points for each publication they've collected, and they would score points for any chart animals they have based on the compass tiles on their board. So in this example, all 3 of these animals would be worth 3 points. A player would score 2 victory points if they have the Darwin token, and then they would score points for all of their theory tiles. Most of the theory tiles will score in a similar way. For instance, many of the tiles will give you points for a particular type of animal or a type of animal from a particular region, and these tiles would count even the tiles that are covered. So in this case, this player has 5 total animal tiles on their board from Africa, including 3 that are covered. In this case, each of these would be worth 5 points. In a similar way, the player would score 4 points for this theory tile, counting the one arthropod that's covered. There are also a couple of tiles that will score for every animal that you have on a particular section of your board. For instance, this tile would give you a point for every animal that you've studied in the bottom right quadrant of your board, including those that are covered. So in this example, this player would score 3 points for that theory tile if they were to have collected it during the game. This theory tile would give a player a point for every theory tile that they have, including this one. This theory tile would give you 2 points for every visible guide icon on your player board, whether it be from an animal or a character. And this theory tile would give you a point for every other tile that's showing on your board that shows the emblematic icon. So in this case, 2 extra points. And finally, this tile would give you 2 points for every publication tile that you have on your board. Whoever has the most victory points would be the winner. And if there's a tie, the player that has the most victory points in the theory category wins the game. And if there's still a tie, the victory would be shared. Now that we've looked at how to play, we'll briefly look at the 5 character tiles and the bonuses that they provide. Conrad Martins would give you an extra chart symbol to score at the end of the game, and you would be able to hire a guide when you play him. John Henslow would give you a compass immediately when you hire him and also would allow you to hire a guide. Charles Darwin would allow you to immediately gain a theory tile following the normal rules and would allow you to hire a guide. Robert McCormick would give you 4 additional victory points at the end of the game and would allow you to hire a guide. And then Robert Fitzroy would simply allow you to hire 2 guides right away when you place him. Alright everybody, thanks so much for watching. That was our video. We hope that it was helpful and we hope that it was informative. If you have any questions about how to play the game, please comment below or you can email me directly at thedicey@gmail.com and I'll do my best to answer those questions for you. As always, if you enjoy the content that we're putting out and you like what we're doing, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to be notified whenever we put out new content in the future. Alright, thanks so much for watching everybody, and until next time, I'll see you at the table.